Hey guys, it's Humanities Alert back again with books 9 and 10. We're going to be bringing you first off the lineup book 9 and book 10. We've got a lot to get through, so let's get right into the book.
In book 9, there are three passages that should be read closely: lines 252 through 259, lines 323 through 330, and lines 190 through 196. Some key questions for this book are: why did Odysseus want the men to stay and not steal the Cyclops cheese? And how does this demonstrate Xenia? Odysseus wanted to stay because he wanted to meet the owner of the dwelling, who he thought he would give him a guest gift because it's one of the rules of Xenia. And it shows Xenia because that was the reason Odysseus wanted to stay. Question 2 is: how does Polyphemus show what the difference of what good hospitality is and what bad hospitality is, and how does this demonstrate the importance of Xenia in the Odyssey? Up until now, we've only been shown good hospitality, but with Polyphemus, we have been shown what bad hospitality is. He doesn't provide them with shelter, he eats his men, and he gives a worthless guest gift, which is eating Odysseus last. It shows that Xenia was very important in the Odyssey because everywhere Odysseus and his men went, they had to stay at a host's house. Question number 3 is: why does Odysseus venture in the Cyclops land, and how does this demonstrate hubris? Odysseus' curiosity and overconfidence got the better of him, and he wanted to explore the Cyclops island. He knew the gods would protect him, so he did not second guess himself. This shows hubris, as his flaw would alter his decision making when he wanted to explore the island.
We talking about starts in lines 408 through 414, and the question is, what did Odysseus call himself in these lines, and how did his cleverness help him during his situation? Um, During these lines, the Cyclops or Polyphemus and Odysseus and his men are fighting for survival. But unfortunately, Polyphemus ate most of Odysseus's men, and now Odysseus is giving Polyphemus a special line as a gift, as a guest gift. So then later, Odysseus answers the Cyclops' question, which was, "What is his name? What is Odysseus' name?" And Odysseus answers, "My name is Nobody." But instantly he boomed back, and he said, "Nobody. I'll eat nobody of last of all his friends. I'll eat the others first. That's my gift to you." And right with that, he fell, he toppled over, and flat on his back, he laid there and he started vomiting and just vomiting all of the wine and all of the chunks of human flesh. And he was very drunk while doing that. This was part of Odysseus's plan to get the Cyclops very drunk, because with that he could finish him off. And by doing this, he grabbed olive steak and stabbed him in his eye and rammed it as hard as he could and drove all of his weight down onto it. So the next question is, what happened after Odysseus tells Polyphemus, the Cyclops, his real name, and how has Odysseus' stubbornness backfire during this situation? And this question is in lines 556 through 562. So right now, Odysseus and his men are trying to escape and just leave through, escape through his boat and just leave as fast as they can. But Odysseus's stubbornness backfires on him this time, because once Odysseus tells Polyphemus his real name, um, Polyphemus called to his father Poseidon and asked for him to give him hard rough time back in the a rough time in the ocean and back to get home. So this backfires in this situation because Odysseus was completely fine, but his stubbornness just grew, and he couldn't stop without being too cocky and saying that he's just and just and he was just talking to him like rudely, and he was being very cocky. So his stubbornness backfired during this situation. So now Poseidon is going and is very mad at Odysseus and trying to not let him get home. So how the next question starts? There are multiple little sections of lines. The question is, how does an expository tone show in these lines, and how does this contrast to the Iliad? Well, the first little chunk of lines is in lines 344 through 348, and Odysseus always, I mean, Homer. Well, Odysseus is telling the story to the king of what's his name, the king, to Alcinous, which is the king of this city, and Odysseus always starts with a story very factual. He starts with when young Dawn with her rose red fingers shone once more. He always starts that when the morning starts or when the day starts, and he always does that. And then in lines 376 through 379, he always on the next page he always ends the day um with nightfall brought him back, and something of that matter. He's always very factual, very serious and on point, and nothing compared to the Iliad, which was more poetic. And Homer was the narrator in the Iliad, and not and like in the Odyssey, Odysseus is the narrator in Book 9. So Odysseus is very more factual and has a more expository tone than Homer in the Iliad.
So starting off in Book 10, we see very early that the theme of Xenia is still continuing when he goes to the halls of Aeolus. So what's so interesting about this to me is that he's hosted an entire month and he had to beg in order to leave, and this is a complete stranger. And to this complete stranger, Aeolus gives Odysseus a wind sack to speed him away, considering he is the king of winds. And all of this for someone who is only a guest, a month and a gift. So, this gift of the wind sack propels the epic forward. Unfortunately, the crewmates open the wind sack and effectively blows them back into the halls of Aeolus. So Odysseus, being wise, begs for another chance from him, but he is refused another chance to leave because Aeolus believes that the gods hate him, and he knows that it's a crime to host or speed off a man when the immortal gods despise him. This propels the epic forward in two ways, because it means he will no longer be sped home, and that the journey will now be much longer. And secondly, the mutinous crew suggests that Odysseus is closer to being all alone on his voyage, as Zeus decreed very early in the epic. So, much later, when Odysseus lands on Circe's island, he goes up the crag, and he looks around, and he scouts the land, and he says, you know what? I'll do it myself. I'll look, I'll scout around, I'll find what I'm looking for, which is, in my mind, a very Achilles-like I-do-it-myself plan. And he thinks for a second, and he wisely decides to go back and feed his men to make them happy, and then lets them go scout in a larger group, which I think is a lot safer and more pleasant for everybody involved. And it really shows that Odysseus has the intelligence to think in long term and not just rush into plans that don't benefit him or his men.
It's Quinn here from Humanities. Today I'm going to be bringing you the middle section of Book 10. lines 171 through 345. Let's just get right into the book because we got a lot to get through, as usual. So the first section is going to be lines 171 through 184, and I've titled this Odysseus Slays the Stag. So one of the main things I've want you to go over, just go to the page. Odysseus first finds he's out going to find food for his men, and he finds a single large stag by itself. And this is very lucky, honestly, because catching and hunting stag, I would assume, since they're very fast and also very large, without any sort of arrows, he slayed it with a sword. So, with this luck, Odysseus credits finding the stag to the gods, and he thinks this is an act of the kindness for the gods because they want him to live. It may or may not be, I have no idea, because it doesn't say anything in the book about it, but I'm inferring this is some sort of divine intervention, and just in terms of this being a huge island, and he finds a large single stag that just crosses his path and he's easily able to kill. And that's kind of the part of the first question, what Odysseus accredits finding the stag to. He credits it to the gods. And then I think one of the things is he understands that this stag was gifted to him, and he could have been much less fortunate and not able to find food for his men so they could eat, because they were obviously very starving after getting sent back, and also they're very sad for just being blown all the way back from Ithaca. And so what I believe this, it's so glorified is because he understands this is a gift from the gods, and he doesn't want to dishonor the stag by just saying, oh, it was easily killed, I hunted it down. It gives very good, imagery to the slaying of the stag because of this. The second section is lines 217 through 224, which is I've labeled Odysseus' men's grief. Now, the reason it's a very short section. It's on. It starts at 217. It's only 7 lines long. So the reason I think this section is really important is because Odysseus has been on this journey for so long, and he understands that his men are down and they aren't feeling, up to the challenge at this point, and they're kind of despairing that a lot of their men have also been lost due to Polyphemus. So, given this, Odysseus understands this, and so when he comes back and they think about or recall how the Cyclops destroyed and just shredded their men and ate them and ripped them to pieces in front of their eyes, he realizes that there's no point in him grieving, and realizes that there's nothing to come out of the grief, and they just need to continue pushing forward. The third section is lines 315 through 334, which is called Hermes' Warning, or Hermes' Warning, sorry. The third question is what Hermes warns Odysseus about, and it's actually about Circe's and how she's able to control men with her potions and lace different kinds of drinks with spells and whatnot. So they can't escape from anything she does, and they are hers. And Hermes warns Odysseus about this before he goes to Circe's halls. And what I find pretty interesting is he goes into very, very intricate depth about this topic. So I feel like maybe a younger Hermes, I know the gods are immortal, but also a younger Hermes possibly was seduced by Circe and her spells, because he goes into very, very intricate detail. I'll read a couple lines. It says, "She'll cower in fear and coax you to her bed, but don't refuse the goddess's bed. Not if she's to release your friends and treat you well yourself. But you have her swear the binding oath to the blessed gods. She'll never plot some new intrigue to harm you. Once you lie there naked, never unman you, strip away her courage." So I feel like that may have happened to a younger Hermes, and he's somewhat, I would assume, traumatized by this, because he goes into such detail, trying to get this to not happen to Odysseus. So I believe that's possibly why he has so much detail on the subject. That's going to conclude the end of my section. I hope you enjoyed. We have one more section. It's the end section of Book 10, and also the outro comes right after that. But thanks for watching, and let's get right back into the book. To Book 10, lines
346 through 640 or 630. The first passage is about Hermes' assistance, and the question here is, how does Odysseus approach Hermes' help, and how does this show the continued theme of honor and glory throughout the Odyssey? So, Hermes' help is that while Odysseus is preparing to confront Circe, who's like a sorcerer person, Hermes uses some divine intervention and gives him this magical herb to help counteract her powers, and gives him a specific set of instructions. So Odysseus, basically in this, he follows Hermes' instructions to the letter, and by doing this, he is trusting that what Hermes tells him to do is what he should do. So honor and glory here, being the main hero in the epic, he still needs help, basically, and he's willing to trust other people, namely gods and other divine figures in the Odyssey, for help to eventually return home. The second passage is Odysseus' sorrow and request. The question is, what does Odysseus ask Circe to do for his men, and what does this show about the companionship between the crew? Let me just find the text here. So in this part of Book 10, Odysseus is not eating or drinking, and Circe asks him why, and Odysseus tells Circe that, and I quote, "Circe, how could any man in his right mind endure the taste of food and drink before he'd freed his comrades and armed and looked him in the eyes?" So here he's really sad because his men are, half his men have been turned into pigs, and the other half are basically hiding. So he wants, to see them all again. So it shows that despite him being like the main guy, the leader, he still wants his crew. The third passage is Circe's directions. The question is, what does Circe tell Odysseus and his men to do in order to get home, and what does this show about the powers of the gods, or of gods? So now Odysseus and his men, they've decided to return home to Ithaca, once more begin their journey. So she tells him, let me just find the text right here, to go to the House of Death and seek instructions from a prophet. So this shows us that gods, even though they're all power, for example, Circe has her palace and servants and tons of food and wine, although they're not really all-knowing. So Circe, she can't, even though she has all this power, she can't tell him how to get home. And that wraps it up for Book 10.